I've had friends that have contacted me that have relatives that have just been diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I'll tell them, get my number, have them call me, and I'll talk to them about my experience. Just don't sit there and sulk. Sitting at home is the worst thing you can do. That was me last year. This year's already started off better, so it's just, you have your up and downs, but you gotta have a positive attitude. Yeah, I take my bass boat, I go fishing. You know, I play golf still, I do. And I've had Parkinson's for 10 years, and I'm doing this stuff. So you can always do it. It's just a matter of will. I mean, you win if you don't quit.
Welcome to In Good Company.
We've got some powerful voices returning to the podcast today. Cory Davis joins us to share his ongoing journey living with Parkinson's, the battles he's faced, and the mindset keeping him moving forward with positivity. We're also joined by Dawn Davis and Cassi Locke from the Parkinson's group of the Ozarks,
an organization making a real difference here for families navigating this disease every day, and they'll tell us about some big events soon to kick off. This is a conversation about resilience, community, and hope. So let's dive in. Guys, welcome back to our show.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So just kind of a recap, we talked back in the fall. So Cory's story, for those who may not know, is there a way we can kind of go over that again, his journey?
So Cory was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, early onset, in 2014. We did suspect that probably since 2010 from his second deployment, but then his third deployment, the symptoms really started to come out because he'd had some unnecessary surgeries in between. We didn't know what was wrong with his right arm. And so then he was over in Afghanistan and he couldn't get his keys out of his pocket. He thought that was kind of weird and fumbled around, and then he sprained his ankle, walking around on uneven terrain. So he had some difficulties, and the military sent him over to Germany, and then those doctors there knew that something neurologically was going on, so they sent him home. And we started a bunch of testing from there at Fort Leonard Wood, and they diagnosed him August of 2014. So it was a rough journey in the beginning, and so he's been diagnosed since then, and he'd been put on the normal medication, which is called carbidopa-levodopa, and he maxed out on that medication about 2020, and the neurologist here in town in Springfield said, I can't do any more for you, and he was referred to have a DBS put in, which is a deep brain stimulator. And so we did that June of 2020. So he did the DBS, which was a life changer. Yeah. So because his progression, you turn it off, he can't really move his hands and his legs or stand up, and his speech really goes away.
It's worse than it is today. I feel like my speaking is struggling. But sure, so I can understand you, but I just feel like I have good days and bad days. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, but the
DBS was a life changer for us because he could still drive, he's still self-sufficient, can do things on his own, and that's good. The progression is there, and that's what Parkinson's is. The progression is the death of dopamine cells in the body that continue to die off, and that creates that affects motor movement. So he cannot function he can't move the body parts.
Well, jumping back, so how did you meet Cassi with Parkinson's group of the Ozarks? What's that origin story real quick?
Well, in 2020, when he had the DBS surgery, we were in the midst of COVID, and as a caregiver and his wife, I was looking for a support group, somebody for me, because I wasn't dealing very well I didn't know how to support him. And so I knew maybe I should find a support group. And so I found Parkinson's group of the Ozarks, and they weren't currently in the office at that time, but I got connected after that. And then I had started teaching yoga therapy. And so I got on, I interviewed for a board position since I was able to teach yoga and do a class and have one that's available through PGO. And went through there, and a couple of last year I was voted into the presidency spot, which was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So
congratulations.
The best way to advocate for your loved one or someone who has Parkinson's is to get involved. And that's all of the different activities and the resources that we have going on. If I could give anybody any advice, is to get involved, to advocate for your loved one.
That's awesome. And Cassie, tell us a little bit about PGO and what all that you guys do.
PGO, which is referred to as Parkinson's Group of the Ozarks, we are a local nonprofit. We are based out of the Springfield area, and we've been in the Ozarks actually for several years. We were established in 1999. The crazy thing with everything is that a lot of people they've never heard of us. It's not until they've had someone that's been impacted by the disease, or maybe hear, something, a little tidbit about it, and then they search, and then we pop up. So we are becoming a little bit more pronounced, especially as a lot more people are affected by the disease. So we have a lot that our organization offers. We do support group guidance, so we help families find support groups in the area. We also offer free wellness classes, just a wide variety of different activities to keep on top of the disease, help manage the symptoms. We do education, we do community outreach. So we're just very fortunate to be able to offer a lot of resources in the area.
That's awesome. Dawn, tell us a little bit more about the program that you do. You mentioned it's yoga. You talked a little bit about it back in the fall. Could you kind of give us some more insight on what that's all about?
Well, I had started, I had retired from the Springfield Police Department. So I had found myself with being pretty young, retiring. And so I looked into doing yoga. I have always loved it. So once I got certified with yoga, I discovered that if I got more hours, I could get certified in yoga therapy. And so I started down that journey, kind of started a small business on my own, and I found out that I wasn't really a small business owner, not very good at that. So I took that class and I shut down the small business and just primarily focused on people with Parkinson's. And that way I could serve the community that way, this community that needed that, because yoga is very good for balance and coordination and flexibility. Also the breathing, because it has like the mindfulness and it's mind, body, spirit. So we work on deep breathing skills, the spiritual side of things as well, because a lot of them do suffer from depression and anxiety. So we work on that mental side as well. It's difficult, but yoga touches all of those things, and it's a very fun class, and that's how I kind of got started and just moved there. In the last 3 years, I've just taught a class once a week that's sponsored by PGO.
If memory serves, people who are a part of this don't have to pay. Is that right?
So we've been a very fortunate organization over the years. Our classes are supported by donations. So we have a lot of big events that we host to help bring in some of those donations. We have, like mentioned, our Parkinson's Resource Fair is one of them. In July, we have a trivia night, which is another really fun event. And then we have our Pound the Pavement for Parkinson's, which is a 5K walk run that happens later in the fall, September, October time. So those are our bigger fundraising events, and they help support our variety of different classes. So we have several different wellness classes that are offered to help cover different symptoms with the disease. So one of the classes mentioned was yoga. There is non-contact boxing, which is rock steady boxing, a very wonderful program that is very popular with our Parkinson's families. There is also Pilates, there is dance, there is indoor cycling. We have a general, just kind of chaired exercise class. We also have speech and swallowing therapy. There's music therapy, singing therapy.
Wow.
So we have a wide assortment that our families can attend at no cost.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any classes you guys are wanting to add here in the near future?
Our boards discuss swimming at one point.
That'd be
a great option. Yeah.
Walking programs. At one point we had ping pong, which was great, but that was led by our volunteers, and they just had a lot on their plate that couldn't continue with that program. Pickleball, I'm sure, any activity, any activity that's going to keep them engaged and active. The main important thing is just making sure that they stay with the activity and it's something that they enjoy. A lot of people are kind of hesitant about jumping into exercising, especially if they haven't done it for several weeks or months or years even. So to kind of be told, oh, I need to start, staying active to stay on top of this, it can be a little intimidating. So
I mentioned the medication that he takes, but every neurologist has always told us the best medicine is exercise to slow the progression, which that's why the mission is towards providing those wellness classes so that people have that opportunity to exercise and things that they wouldn't have done before, and their caregivers can join with them, and it's there available because it takes priority over medication. Medication's there for sure to help, but doing exercise slows that progression down so much more.
Cory, what would be like words of encouragement that would get them out of the house and to be a part of PGO?
Well, I think we talked about this last time. You win if you don't quit. And you just got to get out and be proactive. And sitting at home is the worst thing you can do. That was me last year. I was not doing very well. But this year's already started off better. So it's just, you have your up and downs, but you got to have a positive attitude. And you really just need to be involved. And I've had friends that have contacted me that have relatives that have just been diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I'll tell them, get my number, have them call me, and I'll talk to them about my experience and what they need to do to that I find benefits me that would probably benefit them. So it's just don't sit there and sulk. I mean, we all have our bad days, but you get out, go for a walk, go ping pong, do whatever makes you happy. For me, I think we talked about this before. I take my bass boat and I go fishing. I play golf still. I do, and I've had Parkinson's for 10 years, and I'm doing this stuff. So you can always do it. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of will.
Absolutely.
I want to add with that too, that usually I think the statistics is over 50% of those diagnosed with Parkinson's will suffer from depression, because that dopamine that we were talking about earlier helps with that feel-good feeling and everything. So when that starts to dwindle down, those thoughts of depression or anxiety start to kick in a little bit more, especially with the Parkinson's population. So having that social connection is just vital. Reaching out, staying connected with others is something that's going to help you manage the disease a lot better. So we strongly encourage our support groups and going to those wellness classes for that social connection, just so they know that they're not alone handling this disease.
And don't be afraid to talk to anybody about it. Especially your family. They're your biggest support group out there.
Absolutely.
So how often do they suggest you all exercise?
Just about as much as anybody should exercise 2-3 times a week, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Even a little more.
Yeah. I would say even a little more.
Yeah.
Cory, what's your favorite activity?
Well, my favorite activity that PGO does right now is yoga. It's really good for me versus the stretching and it's faith-based too, which I really like. But if they get pickleball,
you're sold to pickleball. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. Don and I started playing last year, and we just love it.
It's like the hottest sport right now.
Yeah.
It's really taking off across the country.
Yeah, and it's just like ping pong on steroids.
Absolutely. And you got something big coming up this April.
Yes.
Tell us all about it.
We are very excited. For those that don't know, April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. So it's a big time for us, a very busy time. And on Saturday, April 18th, we are going to have our Parkinson's Resource Fair in Springfield. It'll be located at Empower Abilities from 10 a.m. to noon. And this is just a wonderful free event where families can come and just kind of see what's available to help them with their Parkinson's symptoms. And we usually have over 20 different businesses, organizations from around the Springfield area and just from around the Ozarks in general. We've had some community partners that are kind of focused more on things like planning for the future. We'll have some that will talk about treatment, medication options, some that will talk about home health options. We have a lot of our wellness classes. The instructors will be there. That will kind of give a little bit more in-depth information about their programs or what they offer. So it's just a wide variety of different opportunity to come and enjoy and actually get to visit with other people too that have Parkinson's, because sometimes people they stay inside and then they make this a special event and they go out to that and they realize, oh my gosh, there's a lot more people that have this disease that I can talk to. So it's that social connection is really important too for the event.
That's awesome.
So are you still looking for more businesses and sponsors for the event currently?
Yes. Yes.
How can they reach you?
They can reach us through our website, parkinsonsgroup.org, or our Facebook page, and it'll have a link to where they can register for the event. I'll throw in with Parkinson's Awareness Month and in April, we have a lot of other events besides just our resource fair going on. We will have a fundraising event at the Kendra Scott Jewelry Store on April, I think it's 25th and 26th on that weekend, where 20% of the proceeds from sales will go to the PGO. So that'll be a fun little opportunity. We also have the kind of newer event that I was mentioning to them earlier, which is we're calling it Park for Parkinson's. So I believe the Centennial Parade is going to be coming through on May 1st. For the Route 66 to celebrate that. And it's going to be passing by one of our locations. So we are going to have a little tailgate party that evening to just
that'll be so much fun
and watch the parade and everything. So our Parkinson's families can come and park and just, share their love of cars. So it's just kind of a fun social event where everyone can get together and just have a great time.
Are you all looking for any volunteers with your board or even just within the organization to help out with different classes and that kind of stuff?
So currently right now we have some board openings. And so if somebody is interested in a board position, then kind of the qualifications would be you have Parkinson's. We would like to have a board member that's somebody that can advocate for the actual disease, living with the disease, or some type of affiliate, like you sponsor a class, or maybe even just a family member has Parkinson's. So you have some type of connection to the community that we know you're going to stay dedicated and you have that passion there for it. So it's just not coming in just to have a board spot, but coming in because you want to help the community.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cassie, are there some misconceptions about Parkinson's that you still get questions about or people raise? You're like, well, no, it's not really like that. It's this.
Yes. I actually had a phone conversation with a gentleman earlier today that with Parkinson's, I kind of just asked him a little bit about what he knew about the disease. And the first thing that came was the tremors. And I think that usually sparks in people's minds because it's the first thing that we can see, the physical. One of the physical symptoms is the motor symptoms that people see as most prominent. But a lot of people are impacted by non-motor symptoms beforehand. So it may be sleep disruptions. They may have trouble focusing, paying attention, like they mentioned, the depression or anxiety or feeling like something's off. It could be digestive issues, those kind of things that may be kicking in first. So then people are kind of like, well, I don't know if this is something else or if this is, usually Parkinson's doesn't come to mind because of those other symptoms being more prevalent. So it is usually until a little bit later on where maybe might have tremors down the road or it becomes a little bit more progressive, but it impacts everyone differently. So a lot of people think, well, that's just shaking's one of it. And it's not a cookie cutter disease. So it impacts everyone differently. Everyone experiences different symptoms. Some, like Cory was mentioning, some days are good days, some days are bad days. Some days it just kind of depends if the medication's on, if the medication's off. It's just so unique and so individualized. And I don't think people realize that, one thing's not going to cover everything on that. Some other, I think, big misconceptions with it too is that it's just an old person's disease. And that's what the gentleman had told me on the phone as well. I just know you get it when you get older. And that's not always the case. There is early onset with Parkinson's, which is diagnosed before the age of 50. And then, some people don't get diagnosed until maybe they are in their 80s. But it's different for each person. So that uniqueness and individualization, I don't think people realize how complicated Parkinson's disease really is.
And Dawn, you mentioned like there's different causes. So in this case, Cory got this overseas, in service, allegedly. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's believed to be a chemical exposure. And one of the classes that we had went through when she talked about the educational classes, we'd learned that sometimes people could have a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, that could cause it, or some type of exposure to a chemical, whether it be bug chemicals, pesticides. So chemicals that are even here, they don't have to be overseas. They could be in your own house. So what triggers it, nobody really knows exactly with each person, but that's suspected that that's what triggered it. It's very rare that it's actually hereditary. It's more about exposure or some type of injury it's come from.
Mm-hmm. And I know earlier you talked about he maxed out on his medication.
Yeah.
Can you explain the process with the medications and how they max out?
The carbidopa-levodopa is like they'll take it 3 to 4 times a day and maybe once or twice, because they have what's called, it's like hills. It will go up, they'll be on where everything's working fine, and then it'll go off. And then everything stops working. And then they'll come up and they'll go down. So the hills and valleys of on and off throughout the day. And so when they start to feel that they're getting ready to go off, they would take that medication. So within a 15, 20 minute span, then that medication would turn them back on. The movement working again. Yeah. One time he was behind the dryer, changing the dryer vent, and he went down and went off, and he was stuck behind there. He's 6'4", and I couldn't get him out. So we had to wait 20 minutes for the medication to kick in, because it is symptomatic. There's no cure.
Yeah.
It's a symptomatic medication. So you use that medication to help those symptoms from going off and on. So the DBS for him is not foolproof. It's not 100%, but it keeps him on more often. And so now he doesn't. So once he maxed out the medication, he was a good candidate because the medication worked for him. And his age. So there's a lot of factors that go in. Not everybody qualifies for it. You have to go through a whole year process of figuring out whether or not you're a good candidate. So he was. And so now he supplements with medication to
189.
189?
That's not all Parkinson's, but yeah.
With everything that he had to 12. So it's a huge difference.
Massive difference.
So that was his journey with that. And then he takes Rytari, which is time released. So he takes it in the morning, he takes it at noon, 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And so then it time releases out. So that's why Rytari was a little bit better than carbidopa-levodopa.
Well, Rytari is carbidopa-levodopa. It's just time.
It's time released. So
time released. There we go.
Okay, there you go.
There we go.
So,
well, yeah, you've been through such a journey. What are, I guess, some points for viewers and listeners who they're new to Parkinson's? They have someone, a friend or a family that's diagnosed. What type of steps do they need to take to go through? Because you mentioned trials, you mentioned different types of drugs. Where do they start? Let's go there. What is like that starting pad? And Cassie, definitely jump in if you have some pointers on like where to begin.
He started with tingling in his hands. And so they thought he had a pinched ulnar nerve. So he had surgery and had they were going to go in there and clean it out and unpinch that nerve. And the doctor came out and said the nerve wasn't pinched. So I just went ahead and cleaned it up. And so it was an unnecessary surgery that happened, but they didn't know what was wrong. And so they thought they had the fix for what was wrong with his arm. That wasn't it. So it was a tingling that he had that just was a tingling sensation. Is that right? Like kind of.
Yeah, just a little bit. It was mostly dexterity.
And the dexterity that comes with that. He wasn't able to move things very well with his fingers. And so they thought he had a pinched ulnar nerve. So don't ignore the symptoms. If you have symptoms that are not happening or that things aren't working, whatever it is, if the doctors don't have the answers, then move to the neurologist, because then it could be that. It could be something underlying that's happening. But we didn't know that at the time. We knew really nothing about Parkinson's. So he went through that unnecessary surgery, went through an unnecessary surgery on his ankle, them trying to fix his gait, because drag foot is one thing that they have with Parkinson's, and he had that on his right foot. So you have these things that they
kind of trial and error.
They try to fix those symptoms with other things instead of let's stop and look at what's happening. Yeah. The totality of the picture.
I was going to say, so Cassie, what are the right questions to ask?
I don't know if there's specifically, the right questions to ask, but I want to say, kind of relating to what he was mentioning, some of the statistics are that I think 1 out of 4 people that have been diagnosed with Parkinson's has had misdiagnosis before they were diagnosed with Parkinson's. When we think about it, that is a large number of people that are misdiagnosed. They have these other symptoms like he was mentioning, and they think it's something else. And then later down the road, as other things start to progress or, come forward, you start to realize, okay, maybe this is Parkinson's. If if you're not sure about something, let them know. It could be a big signal for them. It could be, something that changes everything, but you need to let them know, and you have to be your own advocate. And sharing things with your family as well. It can be important too. If you keep everything inside, it's going to be even a harder journey. So having, that support system, having your loved one there, having them come with you to the doctor's appointments and learning more about the disease, that's going to make a very big impact. But just sharing as much information with your doctor and being open as possible is a great starting point.
Absolutely.
When I first got diagnosed, I really didn't know anything about Parkinson's. So when I came out of my doctor's office at Fort Leonard Wood, I just sat on the curb and started crying because I knew my career was over, at least. And so I reached out to Dawn, and before 10 minutes, 20 minutes later, she called me back. She's all investigative work. This is Parkinson's.
That's the cop in me.
I love it.
She knew more about it than I did. I just got diagnosed 20 minutes ago. Your family is
so important.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they chased the ulnar nerve issue all the way back to a different Leonard Wood. And when I first got there, the doctor was like, you tested it? Nope. I think it's this. Go get a second opinion. I went to Mercy, and the neurologist there diagnosed me within 10 minutes. She just said, as soon as I saw you walking, you had Parkinson's.
Wow.
So
they do have a DAT scan test that they can do, and it just measures the death of dopamine. It doesn't. It doesn't diagnose Parkinson's.
Is that like an MRI or what? How do they do
similar.
that? Okay, very similar too.
Yeah, but it doesn't diagnose it. It just confirms that there's the death of dopamine.
That's fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah. So we did go and do that test as well, and could see that there was the death of and that both sides were being affected. Because sometimes with Parkinson's, probably majority, it targets one side of the body first.
Gotcha.
Before the other side ever comes in. And when you're elderly, it usually...
Looks like a stroke almost.
Yes, it will only affect one side. So Cory was affected on both sides. And
I mean, if you're going to go big.
So, and he was early onset. So he was 44. And that's when he was diagnosed. But we're pretty sure he had it in 2010.
Back in 10.
Because of, I can sit there and think back of things that he complained about the arm prior to with the OMA. And that started in 2010. So it'd be more like 16 years he's been diagnosed. Or that he's had Parkinson's.
Cassie, with the research, how fast is Parkinson's onset? How from the first indication to because I know everyone's a little bit different, but I'm just kind of curious, what's the expected timeline with Parkinson's? Let's go with that.
We can't say on that. And like we mentioned earlier, and our discussion is individualized for each person. So everyone experiences it completely different. Sometimes the symptoms will progress really quick, sometimes slow. It also depends on how proactive you are about staying on top of your medication, on keeping active, physically, mentally. All of those are going to play a big part. So we unfortunately don't have
no worries.
an answer for that specifically, but there's just too many factors that can't give us a definite answer.
But we do know exercise plays a huge role in slowing it down. Is that correct?
That is correct. We say movement is medicine. So.
Movement is medicine. It is the best medicine for that progression. Slows it down.
That's awesome. I know we touched base a little bit on the new technology and things like that. Could we go over some of that again on kind of the new research that's coming out and some of the medicines and technology being used?
Well, Cory has a DBS.
Yes.
He has a deep brain stimulator, and it's on all the time. When Cory asked the doctors how it worked, because he has little probes that are drilled into the top of his brain. So
That's certainly the bionic man.
he was awake for the surgery.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And it's brain surgery. And they insert those probes down into the thalamus.
Mm-hmm.
And so these little bands that are on this end of these probes dial in different levels of stimulation, electrical stimulation through the body. And so they go in on the top here, and then you can see through here, if you turn your head this way, you can see the wires that are running down through underneath the skin, and they come to a battery pack. So it's like a brain pacemaker. And,
that's amazing.
And it sends electrical stimulation through his entire body so that he can move. So if you turn it off, then it doesn't. And then when we ask the doctors why or how it works,
they say they don't know. It
just does. And Cory, you mentioned, memory serves, I think you said this technology goes back to the 1930s or something?
Yeah, 30s and 40s. They started with it.
How often do the batteries die on those?
Every 5 years.
Well, that's not too bad.
On average, yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Well, they have come out with rechargeable batteries. And I had the option of having the rechargeable batteries when I had my batteries changed last September. But I didn't feel like being an iPhone and having these things tucked all over me. So
fair enough.
I'll just come back and see in a few years. But that's technology has advanced that you can self-charge.
Wow.
So when you hear him talk about that last year he had a bad year, he also had a battery change last year.
Okay.
And so to me that just 2 + 2 equals.
No, that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
It
probably
adds up
led to him having more issues.
He had more issues when the batteries had started
was being
to die.
depleted, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when he had that battery change, it took a few months to get it working good. And the doctors here in Springfield do all of the programming and send him home with programs. And so then he can change them himself if he needs to give himself what they call a bump of electrical stimulation. He can up that bump or lower that. And so that's one technology that we're aware of. There is also a technology that they can have the medication done with a pump that's am I saying the word right?
Intravenously?
Yeah,
in the belly?
It's kind of like a little pouch that just connects, and it just kind of does a continuous flow of of that, so you're not having to take medication orally all the time.
Okay.
So they do have that.
So, and every option is going to depend on different factors if you're a candidate on that. So that'd be something to discuss with your neurologist, your primary physician. So
Cory had to have maxed out on the medication, and he did respond well to the medication. And so since the medication worked and he'd maxed out, the next step was the DBS and his age. Because if we are elderly, sometimes they may not be medically sound to go through brain surgery. So he had to go through, stay the night in the hospital without medication, all of the things, all the testing. And he also had to go through psychological testing as well to make sure he was a candidate for it.
You're definitely going to check your mental acuteness.
Yeah. So every person's different, but we were at first a little skeptical about it. Researched it a lot. We watched the video of documentary on it, and that's where we discovered that they'd done it in the Mayo Center back in the 30s, and we're like,
Wow.
oh wow, this has been around for a long time. This isn't just new technology. It's evolved, but it's been around they've been doing it for a long time for Parkinson's, and for other motor movement, essential tremors, things like that, Parkinsonisms, different motor movement, MS. There's lots of reasons why they would use a DBS.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's incredible. Any drugs coming down the line that you might be aware of, or I'm just curious.
I'm going to say, come attend our Parkinson's resource.
There we go. There's the plug I'm looking for.
Several companies are going to be sharing information about latest, newest treatment options. I don't have a background in this, so I can't say
That's fair enough.
what's the best options on that. But you can really talk to the experts at our Parkinson's Resource Fair.
April 18th.
Yes. I think that one thing to just kind of highlight is that we focus a lot on the motor symptoms. But I think people just don't realize how much the non-motor symptoms play a huge part. I kind of hinted about that a little bit earlier, but the non-motor symptoms are what I think sometimes impacts people even more than the motor symptoms. There's a lot of things like cognitive changes where, you're wondering if this is Alzheimer's, is this dementia that I have too in combination. Your attention, your memory, your focus, all of that's impacted. Your behaviors that you do every day, all of that's changed by Parkinson's. There's other, like mentioned, there's digestive issues. It can disrupt your sleep. It can cause skin changes. I mean, the list just goes on, and people don't think about these small little things that can impact their everyday life. We had one family that was having trouble where the husband was drooling a little bit more than normal, and they didn't realize that was associated with the Parkinson symptoms. And so these little kind of things that can really make a big change in people's life. People don't understand that the non-motor symptoms make that first appearance sometimes.
Good to know.
We have a newsletter that comes out
Quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly.
Great.
And this month, you can find it on the website, a digital version of it. And the front page is Dr. Ryan Jones wrote he's a neuropsychologist, and he wrote a wonderful article about the mental state that people with Parkinson's go through. When I talked about depression and anxiety, so providing support groups for people with Parkinson's, not only that, but just for their caregivers, and working on ways to cope and ways to deal with the stuff that is going on emotionally and mentally in their minds is also very, very important, because they feel very alone or isolate themselves. So that community is important, to know that they're not alone, and to help with the mental side of it. I work a lot on that in my yoga class with meditation. Cory mentioned it's faith-based. You win if you don't quit. And so we talk about the spiritual side and having hope with God. And so we do it that way. And so there are a lot of things that we use to reach people with Parkinson's that is not just non-motor. And other things like speech is non-motor.
No, it's not.
The symptoms they'll suffer through and not know that that's what they're dealing with.
I want to add to that also
Absolutely.
is that everything that we offer is always in a group setting. So we always get a lot of questions about, more individualized. Oh, do you come out to the home? Can you do one-on-one? And we don't really offer those services because we know how vital it is to be connecting with
Yes.
others. So we offer things as a support group. We offer wellness classes all in a group setting. So everyone can congregate and just visit and really, build that social bond that is so vital for managing the disease.
Awesome. So April 18th,
Yes.
10 to noon.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much, Dawn, Cory, Cassie. Thank you again for coming out and talking with us. Cory, I'll give you the floor. Last word.
Like I said before, don't let it consume you. It's not the end of the world. You just might have to change a few things. But don't get in that position where in that dark place, stay out of that place. It's not a fun place. And there's always people to talk to. And just reach out. PGO. If your faith is, your pastor, anybody, your best friend, talk to somebody. I've been there. It's not fun.
But there's hope.
You ain't going back.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And we'd love to stay connected. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and on Instagram at In Good Company Elder Care Podcast.
You can also find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at IGC Pod, and on TikTok at IGC Elder Care Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to In Good Company. I'm John Ray, and I've been joined by my amazing co-host, Spencer Ernst. Special thanks to our executive producer, Alex Wallace, for helping bring this show to life. Until next time, take care, and remember, you are always in good company.